that shit was hard. It was hard. It was hard accepting that I needed help and I couldn't manage this on my own anymore. What's up, beautiful people? It's your girl Aylia, and welcome back to my channel. I just want to say, y'all, the overwhelming support that I've been getting, yes, I'm getting emotional. I'm not gonna cry. I'm gonna try my best. But the overall support that I've been getting, it's overwhelming in the best way. And I just want to say thank you for my little subbies, for my friends, for my family who's been supporting me. This feels so good. This feels really good to just be here and just talk with you guys, and I'm excited to see what we got coming up. Today is the first episode of Skincare and Talks with my therapist. So this is a series that will be on my YouTube channel where I'm basically using some of my favorite skincare products, doing my skincare, my usual skincare routine, whether it's my morning routine, night routine, or me using some of my favorite masks and exfoliators, while also telling you guys some things that I've learned in therapy so far, what the journey has been like, how I found my therapist, why I decided to start therapy, and all things lessons, growth, and healing. So with all of that being said, we're gonna go ahead and jump right into the video. So I did already wash my face for today, so I used the superfood cleanser. So I ran out of this cleanser, but this is my #1 go-to cleanser always, and I just got a refill. So I got the refill size, which I think is 16 ounces. They were having a 25% off sale on youtothepeople.com, so I decided to buy that and just, like, you know, refill the bottle that I already had. I'll be using, of course, my Vino Clean toner. I'm actually running out of this soon. I am going to have to re-up. I'm thinking about going back to the Aqua Bomb toner though, so yeah. And then of course, my hyaluronic acid, my vitamin C serum, and for today's moisturizer, I am going to use the Squalane Vitamin C and the Vitamin C Rose Moisturizer. So I'm excited to try that out. And where is she? And of course, my Black Girl sunscreen. For today's video, I will be talking about why and when I started therapy, and I'm just going to basically talk about how I found my therapist, the resources that I used, why I decided to start my therapy journey in the first place, and just, like, you know, what that process looked like and felt like. I want to be as transparent as possible about the process because yes, I am in therapy and being in therapy feels great now, but the process to find my therapist and realizing why I needed to start therapy in the first place was not that great. It was a lot of trial and error. So I'm going to give you just some of the rundown of why I started therapy, when I started therapy, and all the resources that I used to find my therapist. First things first, I decided in 2021 that I wanted to go to therapy. I want to say between April and May, I was experiencing a lot of anxiety about graduating college, and I was just like, where am I going after this? What am I doing? And I was also severely depressed. I was not mentally well. I was really just depressed, stuck in bed, and to be totally transparent, I was having some thoughts of suicide. Girl, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't get emotional. Don't do it. But yeah, I was just having some really dark thoughts of, like, me not wanting to exist, me not wanting to be here, just really lost in, like, my purpose and what am I supposed to be doing, and I'm graduating with this degree and I'm about to step out into the real world, so what's going on? And I was just really, really down and out. The other part of that too is that I was also just going through some other things, like with family. The pandemic also had a big impact on my mental health, and just because I was, you know, we were quarantined, and because we were quarantined, I spent a lot of time sleeping and staying in bed, and I was working remote, but you know, like I wasn't really having a routine. Like I would just get up from bed at 10 a.m., log on, do whatever, and log off and go back to sleep. Like I was stuck in this feeling of being trapped. I just didn't know what was going on with my life. And I was also experiencing a lot of anxiety of just like being alone with myself. So a little backstory on that: I was living with my sister at her apartment, but she had moved away to New Mexico for a year because she was out there working, and I was basically living in the house by myself. And while I was living in the house by myself, I never experienced anxiety like that before. And I was just like scared to be in the house by myself. Even at one point, like when the quarantine started lifting and everything, and like we were able to go outside and stuff like that, I was scared to go outside. So it was very strange for me, because all of the anxiety was mostly rooted in me being alone, and also me kind of like not wanting to go outside because I'm just scared of the world. Your girl was going through it, okay? I decided in April of 2021, I need help because I'm in a dark place. I'm in a really bad place. I'm thinking about not existing, not being here. I'm sad all the time. I feel like I can't reach out to my friends. I know my friends and family are there for me. Like I knew they were there for me, but I didn't want to feel like a burden to everybody. We all had our own stuff going on during the pandemic, and I felt like I didn't want to burden other people with my darkness. And I was just like, I really need somebody to talk to. And I made the decision, yeah, Aylia, there's a lot of stuff that you got to work through, and you need help. So April 2021, that is when I decided to go ahead and start looking for a therapist. The first resource that I used for finding a therapist was my college. So I decided to go ahead and contact the wellness center of my school and ask them about like counseling services. Am I still eligible to seek a counselor even though I'm about to graduate in a month? And luckily they were like, yeah, you know, we can hook you up. We just need to do consultation and intake and stuff like that. So that was the first resource that I used. While I was also doing the intake with my school, I was also looking into other resources outside of the school, because I was like, you know what? Here goes that anxiety speaking. I was like, you know what? I don't want to just hook onto a therapist from my school, and then once I graduate, I no longer have access to those wellness resources. So I decided to go ahead and just continue doing some research. And at first I started using therapy for Black girls. My best friend Justine actually put me onto that website to find a therapist. The great thing about therapy for Black girls is that it is catered to Black women seeking Black therapists, right? Because that's important. Our experiences as Black women are very unique, and so it's important to kind of just be able to relate to your therapist about your experience navigating the world, right? I started by just like looking up therapists that were remote, because a lot of clinics were not taking in-person clients at the time. Also, I looked up therapists that were in my city, in my area, just in case that when things start opening back up, I would start going to therapy in person. I was kind of running into a wall with therapy for Black girls, only because a lot of therapists were already booked. Again, it was a pandemic, so it didn't surprise me that finding a therapist during that time was hard, because everybody's going through it. Everybody's mental is drastically shifting because of the pandemic, and so we need help. So it didn't surprise me that I wasn't able to really find therapists that were taking new clients at the time. But on the other hand of that, I was still able to use Therapy for Black Girls for other resources like their podcasts. I personally do like the idea of just tuning into a podcast that you can relate to. I will definitely leave some links in the description box of my favorite podcasts I was listening to while searching for a therapist and the resources that I used to find a therapist. It was one of the things that really did help me while I was on the journey of finding a therapist, because it reminded me that I am not alone in my struggle. There are other people who are feeling the things that I'm feeling. Aylia, don't cry, please. Please. We were doing so good. We were doing so good. Don't start crying now. It was just the gentle reminder that, like, I'm not alone in my struggle, you know? Like, there are other people out here who are feeling the things that I'm feeling and who are seeking the help that they need just like me. So I was still using Therapy for Black Girls for their podcast, and they also just had a lot of other resources on there, like their newsletter and blogs and stuff like that. It's a great resource to use because they do have a lot of different things on there, ranging from podcasts to actual therapists. So moving on, I was also just like really anxious and frustrated that I wasn't able to find a therapist immediately. And I felt at that time that I was just like, I was at a breaking point. I was like, nah, this is not normal. I'm not okay. And to even verbalize that I'm not okay was a stepping stone for me. And I embraced it as much as I could because, again, I was going through the motions. But I'm the type of person that I don't really speak about my struggles. I be going through my stuff, and usually I take on my battles silently. And it came to a point where I was like, Aylia, you can't take on your battles silently anymore. So your girl needed help. Your girl needed help. And so because of that, I decided, yeah, I need to go get help. But that shit was hard. It was hard accepting that I needed help and I couldn't manage this on my own anymore. I'm still on the search for finding my therapist. In the meantime, I was speaking to the therapist that I was connected to through my school. However, she ghosted me. I don't know if that's maybe because, you know, I graduated the month later, but I was also just like, shouldn't I have been notified if the services were gonna stop? Either way, right? It was a hot mess. When I was searching for a therapist, I got discouraged a lot because I saw the price that it cost to see a therapist, especially a lot of like private therapists and stuff. And in my head, I was like, damn, if I did not have insurance, this would actually be a lot more stressful. But luckily, I was able to find a resource that gave me clinics and places in my area that was taking my insurance. With that being said, I reached my breaking point. It was before graduation. I had just finished taking my graduation pictures and I came home and I felt good. Like, you know, I felt I had a burst of energy. I was home alone. I was dancing around the house and stuff. And it was so drastic the way that energy shifted. And I broke. I started hysterically crying. But at the same time in my head, I was like, Aylia, you can't reach out to nobody like this right now. You can't. The way that you are right now, nobody needs to see you this way. Don't burden somebody else with this right now. Like, those were all the thoughts that was going through my head. But I was breaking, and in that moment, I didn't want to exist. I didn't want to just like feel all the things that I was feeling. I didn't want to feel all the things that I was feeling. I just wanted everything to stop. I wanted everything to pause, and it just felt like everything came crashing down. And so it was hard. And I felt really anxious and I was scared. I actually decided to just look up like hotlines for mental health, distress, and everything. And I came across New York City Well. So New York City Well is a resource for New York City residents that are, experiencing things with depression and all of that. I'm not sure if it's past mental health, but it's a great resource either way. And their hotline is open 24/7. So you can call, text, chat, all of that if you need assistance. And so I rang them up because I was like, I'm struggling, and I'm struggling really hard right now. And I was able to speak to a representative, and I just unloaded everything that I was feeling, all the anxiety, all the dark thoughts that were there. I just unloaded and I let it go. And as we were talking, I was telling her about my frustrations of, I know I need help. I know I need the help, but I'm not getting the help. So she emailed me a bunch of resources that both take my insurance and are taking on new clients. So I was really, after that call, I felt a lot better about the process. Now, keep in mind, this happened maybe ending of May, to a little closer towards graduation. The timing of me getting to that place of just like, now I have these extra resources, was about a month and a half. I didn't officially start seeing my therapist until, I want to say, end of July, early August. So now I have these resources from New York City Well, and I'm calling up clinics, sending in intake forms, and I'm sending them everywhere. Like, I'm not really, at that point, I was no longer like picky about like what my preferences were for a therapist. The only preference that I really stuck to was my therapist being a woman, because I just felt like that's important for me in sharing my experiences of how, I was raised, how I grew up, what that means to me, how I navigate the world and stuff like that. That was the one preference that I stuck to when it came to finding my therapist, because I was like, I need the help. I need the help. But, I do want to stick with having a woman for my therapist. So I'm calling these clinics, and I'm, just calling them up, sending in intake forms, and it finally got narrowed down to 2 therapists. So my therapist now and another therapist that I was doing an intake for. When I was doing the intake with the other therapist, that is not the therapist that I have now, I noticed that like she was starting to immediately push medication. I wasn't opposed to taking medications. However, I did express that I wanted to try talk therapy first before like starting to take any antidepressants or anxiety medication. And I expressed that, and I guess like, I don't know, I just felt like between that encounter and also like, the vibe, I was like, yeah, you're not the one for me. But my therapist now, I was doing the intake with her, and we did a total of 3 intakes. So the intake process was also pretty long, and that's just because like they're getting to know you. They're assessing like what kind of treatment plan that they are going to generate for you. So it was a lot of just like questions, like, oh, tell me about this, tell me about that, tell me all of these things before we actually got into the meat and, before we got into the hard work of therapy. So your girl has been in therapy for about 1.5 years now, and man, let me tell you, it's been a ride. It's definitely been it's been a ride, and I'm not gonna lie though, I'm grateful that I started when I started. And I can see the impact that it's having with myself, the relationship with myself, the relationships with my friends, and also the relationships with my family. I can see the difference that it's making in those relationships, and especially the one with myself. And as a result of therapy, a lot of different things creatively came out of it for me. So like, of course, my YouTube channel, Skincare Talks with My Therapist, right? And Self-Care Sundays with Aylia on my Instagram. There were just a lot of different things that started coming out of therapy for me that I truly and honestly do feel made all the difference in just who I am as a creative, who I am to the people around me, and who I am to myself. The most important thing is the relationship with myself and how I rebuild that confidence that I lost, and the low self-esteem that I was feeling. But yeah, your girl is in therapy now, and she's growing and she's healing through it. But it's been a ride, and honestly, thinking about where I am now and where I was 2 years ago, I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna do it. Yeah, I am. It makes me emotional. Y'all, I'm an emotional person. I cry damn near at everything, so please bear with me. But I'm so proud of myself for one, sticking it through. Therapy, I had a lot of expectations of what therapy was going to look like, and it just didn't look that way. And it was a lot of me just learning, like, oh, this is what therapy is. This is what it feels like. I will be talking a lot about that in the episodes to come, just of what my expectations are versus what the reality was for therapy. But it is a reminder that, like, healing is not linear. I, for a very long time, was stuck in the narrative that healing is linear and I'm going to go through this stage, that stage, this stage, and I'll be good. But the reality is healing it's a whirlwind. Some days you're up, some days you're down, some days you're somewhere in between. And all throughout that process, it's okay. You are going to be okay. I think throughout the process, the most important things to try to hold on to is just one, you are not alone in your struggle. And, if that is helpful to you, to just know that there are people out here who can relate. And sometimes all it takes is just one person that we feel like we can relate to, one voice that we feel is really comforting. Again, which is why, like, podcasts to me were a great, like, thing to help during that time. And just remind yourself that, like, you're not okay right now, and it is okay to not be okay. I'll talk about this more in future videos to come, but me just accepting the fact that I was not okay and that I needed help was, one, a big step for me. Two, it allowed me to be vulnerable and honest with myself. And I no longer felt like I had to put up this brave face and this front and make everyone think I was okay and holding it together. I need help just like anybody else, and I can't take on everything by myself, and no one can. We need community. We need our friends. We need people that we can relate to. We need someone who can actively, just try to help us out in navigating the things that we are going through and the things that are happening. And I just want to tell you, be kind to yourself. I feel like this is me talking to little Aylia when she needed somebody to just, like, tell her that it's okay, or like, it's not okay right now, but I got you. But yeah, if you needed a reminder to just, like, be kind to yourself, this is it. You cannot fill other people's cup if your cup is empty. If you can't, help yourself, or if you are not taking care of yourself, there is no way that you can effectively help the people around you. And me really just being in therapy is me learning that, me reevaluating the relationship with myself, healing inner wounds that have been there for God knows how many years. To anyone who is watching this, to anyone who's having a hard time, you're not alone. You're not alone, and you are loved, and it takes time. Things like this take time, and it's very cliche, and we hear it all the time that old time heals old wounds, but it's true. You just have to give yourself that time and give yourself the permission to allow yourself to break, allow yourself to fall, allow yourself to be vulnerable and say, I need help. I've had a hard time being that. I've had a hard time being vulnerable and transparent, and no more. I want to really step into my light. I want to step into really being vulnerable and really just practicing speaking up for myself. And that is what therapy is helping me with right now. I'm trying not to cry, y'all. Jesus. I can't. My teary-eyed self is gonna close the video off here. I want to make it clear that this series on my channel and my channel in general, the purpose of it is to cultivate a safe space for us to just express ourselves and be really transparent and vulnerable. The hope is that this series on my YouTube channel really resonates with some of you and really helps you to feel seen. I would love to hear from you guys and just let me know some things that resonated with you, some things that you loved. And if you're on a journey yourself, whether that be you are actually in therapy or you are finding and reinventing yourself in other ways, I would love to know your stories. Please, again, if needed, make sure to check out that description box for links to both the products that I used in today's video and also all of the resources that I used while finding my therapist. A reminder that I love you, you are loved, and we're in this together. If you did like this video, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm really looking forward to hearing some of your thoughts, some of your comments on just, you know, what are you doing right now? What is something that you are doing to take care of yourself? What does self-care mean to you? Leave all of that information there in the comment section for me, and I will definitely see you guys in the next episode of Skincare and Talks with my therapist. Bye.